Coming up to 10 minutes to 7 on a Thursday evening. Jim Dillahunt here with Daryl King and Roger Hanna. 0845 500 1025 the number. Terry's on the line. Hi Terry.
Hi guys.
Hi there.
Hi Terry.
I'd like to make a main point, but just before I go here, Laurie for Bishop Biggs actually brought something back to my mind when he was talking about Phil from Donegal. Phil posed a question a couple of weeks back I thought was pretty interesting. I thought somebody in the media might have picked up on it, but I never heard or saw any other mention of it. And he said that at the start of this season, when Rangers entered as Scotland's representatives in the European and the Champions League, he posed the question, given that they had a £2.8 million tax bill, should the SFA have granted them a licence in the first place for that? And I was wondering if you guys could throw any light on that, or if you could ask the SFA if the proper procedures were followed.
Well, I can take that on, no problem, Terry. The proper procedures were followed. There was no reason for the SFA to prevent Rangers or any other club entering European football this season. You know, some people don't like to hear this, Terry, but there's nothing the matter with Rangers going into Europe or Rangers playing domestically with debt. Look at Real Madrid, look at Manchester United, Arsenal. The vast majority of the teams who play in Europe have got debt. Now, that might be right, that might be wrong. I'm not, I don't have an opinion on it, but it's fact. They do have debt, and at the minute, Rangers playing in European competition, and there's an irony that we knocked out both competitions already, Terry, at the first hurdle. There was nothing to prevent them going in. Now, whether in future years, once these UEFA fair play rules are on the statute books and adopted right across the board for the Champions League and Europa League, whether, had Rangers been in that position under the European fair play rules, whether then they would have been denied a licence to play in whatever European competition they qualified for, be it the Champions League or the Europa League, that might be a different story. But this season, there was nothing to prevent them getting into Europe.
There you go, Terry. Yeah, sure.
Well, being in debt and owing a tax authority are two different things. Under UEFA rules, it's quite clear that a domestic association cannot approve a club to participate in European competition if they've an outstanding debt to a tax authority.
The matter's still under dispute, Terry, so it's not been settled either way. So how can you ban them from Europe if you don't know where the tax case is going to go? The small tax case, Rangers are disputing the interest and the penalty. So what you're saying is that the SFA should have said, we're not letting this team play in Europe, and then it gets resolved in Rangers' favour and they've been deprived of playing in Europe.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the bill wasn't in dispute. The 2.8 million, that was not in dispute. It was only the interest that was in dispute and the penalties that were in dispute. So again, I come back to it. If you've got a bill for £2.8 million, why is your association approving your entry into Europe?
I think I'm pretty sure in this, Terry, and you probably spend a bit more time on the internet than me, but there's I'm pretty sure there's a letter from Stuart Regan that's been doing the rounds confirming that everything was above board. Have you not seen that? No.
You can have a look.
Have a wee look for that.
Anyway, what was your main point?
My main point was I found the choice of Charlie Richmond for the Celtic game at the weekend quite strange. I thought Charlie was actually helping Mike McCurry out in his Magic tour, because he kind of disappeared off the scene. And the 11 or 12 games he's had this season, I think he'd won previous SPL game. He's parachuted into one of the high profile games of the season, top of the league clash, which is always a feisty encounter. Now, I don't have any problems with Motherwell players going head to head, noising Celtic players up, trying to knock them out of their stride. That's part and parcel of the game. That's what happens. But where I do have a problem is Charlie Richmond is known for his leniency. And when I heard he was in charge of the game on Sunday, I thought, he'll be lucky to play their natural game here. There'll be fouls left, right and centre. And I was proved right. 20 fouls. If you look at the last two times Celtic have been at Fir Park, Charlie Richmond refed one of them, Ewan Norris the other. 44 fouls. Last two times Rangers have been at at Motherwell. 16 fouls, 8 fouls per game. And it's predominantly because, I think, who's in charge of the game. If Charlie Richmond had put a marker down early doors, a good game would have turned into a great game, in my opinion. He spoiled the game. No, the Motherwell players. The Motherwell players, it's like Wayne's at school. They'll push a teacher if they think the teacher's soft. If the teacher's strict, they'll behave themselves. And he just let too much go. An early booking would have set the tone. But no, Charlie had to hit. I mean, some of the fouls, there was nothing really major, but it was persistent, and how he could let it go is just beyond. He spoiled the game, and how he get brought in for the cold to referee that game is beyond me as well. The guy should get back out of grass.
I have to say, Terry, I shared your surprise last week. I was shocked when I saw that Charlie Richmond had the game, just for the simple reason that he hasn't had a high-profile game like that for some considerable time. You know, normally it's a Craig Thompson or it's a Willie Collum. But listen, let's be fair, let's be honest. If it had been Craig Thompson, there'd have been people phoning in this week moaning that Craig Thompson get the game. If it had been Willie Collum, there'd be people phoning in this week moaning that Willie Collum had the game. You know, certain people have something in their head about certain referees. There's nothing the matter with Motherwell's, tactics at the weekend. Stuart McCall sent them out to play like that. They pushed the boundaries. They tested Charlie Richmond, and you're quite right. Charlie Richmond was lenient. There's no doubt about it. On another day, Keith Lasley might have been sent off. Tim Clancy was sent off. On another day, there'd have been more yellow cards. There'd have been, possibly another red card for Motherwell. But listen, Motherwell aren't the first team to adopt these tactics. You've seen countless teams do it in the old firm over the years. And as you say, I agree with you. It's like a pupil pushing a teacher. If they feel the opposition are there to be kicked, they'll go and kick them. And if the referee can't handle it, they'll keep doing it. But I'll be fascinated to see if Charlie Richmond comes back and gets a game of that sort of profile again in the coming weeks.
Thanks very much, Terry. 0845